There are many areas in World of Warcraft Classic that needs love in the highly anticipated Classic Plus, but today we're going to talk about my favorite class, the Rogue. It was my first level 60 back in original World of Warcraft, and the class I have leveled in more or less every expansion since. It was also the class that got me into Season of Discovery, just because I wanted to experience the Rogue tank all the way through. So join me while we have a look at a handful of things I would love to see change going into a possible future of Classic Plus. Please note that these ideas are things I would want sometime in Classic Plus. It doesn't have to be on launch, and some would probably be good if they waited a bit to avoid releasing something unfamiliar. We're going to start with some easy wins and obvious things, moving on to some more niche and personal areas. Lastly, we're going to have a look at some of my wilder ideas that I very much look forward to pitch and see what you guys think. So stay tuned for that. But first, hi, my name is Murno and welcome to my channel. I usually don't make WoW content. I'm a variety streamer over at twitch.tv/MurnoTV, but I do love classic WoW. So I was thinking, let's get the most important thoughts out before BlizzCon, and fingers crossed we actually do get an announcement. Classic Plus hype? Let's get into it. Class quests. Everybody loves them. Everybody wants more of them, and so do I. It would be really nice if they actually could be every 10th level and expand on the same story in one way or another. Currently we have quite a few class-specific quests in the early game to introduce us to lockpicking and poisons, but that's pretty much it until level 50 where we get some rogue armor. There is so much space during the leveling journey for a rogue adventure of infiltration, stealing and haggling, and I would just so much love if the same story that is started around level 10 goes all the way through to the max level and ending in some pinnacle quest. They tried to do something like this in Season of Discovery with the C letters, you know, and I think that comes from a very good place. I love those type of things. Another form of class quest-ish is if the raids or dungeons could drop unique items that sets us on an adventure, rewarding us with some cool loot. I'm thinking like benediction for priests, you know, and the more you are dependent on your guild to finish the storyline, the better. They did add this skull from Major Domo in Season of Discovery that gave us access to the cool burning adrenaline rush sword, but that was not really tied to a quest or an adventure, unless you count the crafting of the sword before sticking it into the skull. So yeah, I think look at the Hunter Leaf and look at the Priest Benediction stuff, and I think the Rogue could really benefit of an adventure like that too. Last part of the class quests or rogue content I would like to see in Classic Plus is quest starter items that drops from pickpocketing. I think this could really spark the lovely situation when someone finds a new quest from pickpocketing and starts telling their guild to go out and pickpocket the same mobs. Similar to, as in Season of Discovery again, a lot of reference to Season of Discovery here. But yeah, when you found a rune there, you were like, hey, I found this cool rune. Everyone just flooded there and wanted to pick it up too. And I think that feeling could be brought back when you pickpocket a quest. And hopefully you don't get the quest when you kill it, so it stays in the rogue world, so to speak. Moving on to rogue gear. Rogue is, in my opinion, one of the most dynamic, all well-rounded classes in the game. This gives us a great opportunity to gear our characters towards what we want to achieve. Two types of effects that are quite rare are reducing fall damage and plus to stealth. And I would love to see Blizzard adding more ways to get our hands on armor pieces like this to slot in wherever we see fit. Not too many, of course, but a few more would be nice. On the topic of gear, I think leveling rogues really need a wider variety of weapon rewards from quests and dungeons to smooth out the leveling for builds that do not opt for swords. The sword progression is really nice when you lay it out like on the screen right now, but such a weapon path does not really exist for daggers, especially not to the level of power that the sword path brings. This means that the combat sword leveling spec is by far the smoothest because you can get a power bump every now and then through the weapon rewards, and it nudges people to the playstyle more than it has to. I love leveling with daggers, but out-leveling your daggers can feel quite bad to the point where a new dagger feels like a relief more than excitement. And I also just want to be clear here. I don't want Blizzard to create weapon progression paths. The beautiful thing with vanilla is the happy accident thing. So with that in mind, I think they should sprinkle out new daggers and maces and fist weapons so we as a community can build that path ourselves. Lastly on the gear list, just add more cool masks. Every rogue loves getting their Defias mask, Ebon mask, Blood Drenched mask from Solgarub. It's one of the few headpieces I am displaying and not hiding when I'm playing. More colors, more patterns, or even sizes maybe, that covers different amounts of your face. Okay, so let's talk about quality of life. There are a few additions I think would be sane to add here. First one is buying and crafting poisons. This is core to the rogues, so we have to keep this, but please let us buy more than 20 of our regions at the same time, so we can bulk buy more easily. I would also love if they could tweak the required regions a little bit so we don't end up with uneven materials or have to buy a stack of 20 and then another 2. This is such a small thing, but it just annoys me for some reason when buying and crafting poisons becomes this exercise of, oh, I need 22 instead of 20, and then the vials are sold in batches of 5, and you end up with 1 or 2 unused vials that you just have to save or throw away to clean up the bag space. I guess a solution to this would be to allow single vial purchases. We can choose exactly the amount we need. On the topic of poisons, I also think Season of Discovery did a really good job introducing the poison cleansing towel. There's this quirk in vanilla that there is no way to remove a poison that has been applied without applying something as a replacement. To fix this, Blizzard added a towel that technically applied another buff on the weapon, but it was a nothing burger of a buff that did not take up the buff slots, allowing for Wind Fury to be applied. If they stick with the idea that rogues' poisons are weapon enhancements and they compete with Wind Fury for the slot, then giving the players the agency to remove it is a no-brainer for me. Never should you lock the player in such a way. If they remove the limitation, I don't think the towel is needed. It could be used if you have a poison that does something you don't want it to do, like slowing or adding a poison at all, but those situations are very minimal. If you ask me, I would say it makes sense for this slot to exist from an RP perspective. You infuse your weapon with one thing and you have to choose that one thing. However, I'm not 100% sold that this should count for class inherited perks. Rogues should always have a way to use poisons. Shamans should also always have a way to use Wind Fury, which they do by the way. If anything, make one class-specific slot and one general slot, so we can choose, but not stack the general option. Lastly, on the topic of QOL, this part is not necessarily only for rogues, but we do have some funky tooltips that I think could use some love, and we also could really use some tooltips UI improvements. I recently played a lot of Path of Exile 2, and one thing they are doing very good is their tooltip and explanation of spells. Everything is broken down into keywords that you can hover on to get more information on what happens under the hood. If something is unclear, another keyword is often displayed so you can get even more information. WoW usually doesn't have this keyword system. Instead, they try to display the numbers or technical description off the bat, while also making it accessible. And I think this is the pitfall right here. If they start tweaking the tooltip system, they have to streamline the basic tooltips and make it more flavorable with hover states and more information where asked by the player. If more information is asked for, then you could go on fully nerd mode with all the numbers. The tooltips are there to inform the player after all. 2 examples I have of confusing tooltips are funnily enough the first 2 tooltips in the subtlety tree, Master of Deception and Opportunity. Opportunity got a lot of flame during Season of Discovery due to the ability to front stab, but they are both too vague from the start. Master of Deception reads, reduces the chance enemies have to detect you while in stealth mode. But to a new player that does not know how stealth levels work, this is highly arbitrary. Opportunity has some flavor text and reads, increase the damage dealt when striking from behind, with your backstab, ambush and garrote. The amount of people during SOD that thought this damage buff was applied only when you were behind the target and came into various rogue discords asking if it was worth taking, either as a mutilating rogue tank or someone using cutthroats while leveling, just shows how this tooltip confuses more than it brings. It actually just buffs the abilities mentioned, and the text about being behind the target is just flavor, since those abilities are only usable from behind. I'm sure all classes have these weird quirks, and I think it's time for Blizzard to address these small things as well, while they're at it. Alright, let's talk about builds, or more importantly, the building blocks, to let players be creative with their own playstyles. One thing I would love if Blizzard did was revisiting many of the talents or tier bonuses that are targeting specific abilities, and widening those buffs into more abilities, making more playstyles more appealing. I have some examples. Number 1 would be Cold Blood. Let's add Hemorrhage, Ghostly Strike and Riposte to it, for example. Not that it's optimal by any means, but since Seal Fate gives a combo point for any crit from an ability, getting 2 combo points for a cold-blooded Ghostly Strike would be a cool combo that is new to vanilla. Second example, Tier 3 8-piece. These tier bonus give 100% crit chance on the first Backstab, Sinister Strike or Hemorrhage after an Eviscerate. So in my mindset, we would either swap Eviscerate with any finishing move, or the latter part to any combo point generating ability, or both at the same time. This would mean Kidney Shot would give a guaranteed backstab crit as a new PvP combo. Or that Hemorrhage crit chance could be applied after Expose Armor. I am well aware that this is quite some power creep right here, but it's the philosophy that we are after here. Widening the effects lets players be creative with the tools that they have. The third example I have is the Veiled Shadows set that you get in the AQ40 patch, I think it is. This reduces energy cost of Slice and Dice, which feels very nice when you get it. In Season of Discovery, this was turned into all finishing moves, which was a bit crazy for the energy economy. A middle ground could be all utility finishing move and add Expose Armor to the mix. We are getting closer to the end, but we are not quite done yet. Right, so let's get into some more wilder ideas. And my first idea here is Rogue as a support. And as you have heard, I really like when you can pick your playstyle. I love Expose Armor, and I just love being useful. It does not have to be mathematically optimal, but when you can carve out your way forward and make it logical and make it work together with others and not being dead weight to your group, it's one of my favorite things in games. This is why I would love if Blizzard actually took a stab at giving the Rogue extended support tools. Let us lean into Expose Armor. Let us lean into poisons that helps the group. Let us lean into stuns and control trash packs. Being of service to the group or raid is so nice. Some people will just neglect this for the personal damage loss, but all I am saying is that the option should be there with the intent and direction, so people like me can choose it and still be of value to the raid. Next up is Rogue as a tank. Surprise! I'm not gonna be here for too long, so bear with me, but Rogue tank in Season of Discovery was so much fun and allowed for many new creative ways to tank. Stealth pulling from creative corners, popping evasion, or parry every other hit, making your weapon swing faster, triggering more weapon procs, and riposting on cooldown. It sure was a crazy time. Now, it obviously can't be that crazy in Classic Plus, but the Rogue tank is such a cool idea, and it's just a silly dream of mine to do it again in another environment. I loved it in every phase, and I remember how cool it was to learn it across leveling with very limited tools. In the beginning, we had very limited multi-hit or AoE and stuff like that, and just working around that was so much fun. Spreading out auto hits with a crazy threat multiplier, yeah, I just miss the feeling of exploring a new archetype. Even if it was wonky, lacking a lot of support, it truly was a great experience for me personally. And lastly, we have arrived at something I would like to call the cross-class synergies. And this is one of my wilder ideas that I would love to see Blizzard take a stab at, and I would also love to hear if you think this fits in vanilla, because I'm not sure, but it's just an idea I have and I would like to test it. So what if we got abilities that has synergies with other classes? I'm thinking something along the lines of Rogue adding Hemorrhage, and if that is active while a Druid uses Maul, for example, the wound is opened even more and increasing the buff or maybe applying a new buff on the target. I'm thinking something like you do a hemorrhage, druid uses maul, and you get a debuff on the target called blood fatigue or something that makes the target hit slower with melee attacks, serving as a boss mitigation tool. Maybe the rogue uses some new ability Blizzard made up, let's call it Mark for Death, and rogue applies that. And then if a hunter uses aimed shot, that aimed shot deals some extra damage and leaves a debuff on the boss. Something like that. Maybe a poison that buffs Shadow Word Pain specifically on the target. So now the priests are super happy because the rogue is adding a poison so they can do Shadow Word Pain and that will deal more damage. Everyone is happy. I know this is just my thoughts going straight into the microphone, but my idea here is that Blizzard could just have fun with these interactions, making classes valuable and fun to bring to the group because they interact and piggyback off of each other instead of warping the class's foundational aspects just to fit a modern raid environment. And there we have it. What do you think the rogue should get or have changed in Classic Plus? Do you think we should go all changes instantly or add them slowly over time? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what I do, consider sharing this to all of your rogue friends and have a look in the description for my other social links. Have a great day and I will see you in Classic Plus.